Hopefully everybody's enjoying their Tuesday so far. So I just want to start out real quick to explain the reason why we have a presentation today. As you know, prom season is quickly approaching. Our prom is actually next Friday, March 17th at the Medallion Country Club. And then we also have a lot of celebrations too this spring with graduation. So as we think about this time, celebrations, we also need to think about the impact of our actions that have consequences, okay? So we have a guest speaker here today, Corinne Lamarca, and she's going to present on the effects of impaired driving and how that has impacted her life and loss of her daughter, Jennifer. Jennifer was a graduate, 2008 graduate of Olentangy Local Schools. Okay? Corinne goes around throughout the country speaking on behalf of her daughter through Jennifer's message. So I'm going to go ahead and please give her a warm welcome applause and welcome her to DACC.
Thank you so much. I'm very pleased to be here today and be able to speak to you. I have a very important message for you. And I just want to let you know, if anybody during my speech feels uncomfortable, that you may go to the Commons and at any time you can walk out and it won't hurt my feelings. I will understand. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about my most amazing and loving daughter, Jennifer Corinne. Yes, she has her middle name is my first name. I am director of Jennifer's Messengers. We started this so that we could bring awareness and education about impaired driving, but also about today's marijuana, which is much different than what it used to be in the olden days, back in the 70s. So my presentation is about the outcomes of marijuana use and driving. So please, feel free to excuse yourself at any time if this gets a little too heavy for you. People often ask me a question when they find out what I do. They ask me, why do you want to be an advocate against impaired driving and against the legalization of marijuana? It's not a tough question for me, because I promised my daughter. It's just simple five words. This promise I made in God's house with all my family and friends around me, attending my most beautiful and beloved daughter's funeral. I was asked to speak that sad day by our clergy at her funeral, and I was so unprepared or even able to pull myself together when he approached me. He told me that God would give me the words to say because I had no idea what I would say. He led me up to the podium, and something divine happened. I felt this warm feeling come over me. My voice became low and clear as it is now, and I began speaking steadily and clear. The words just started coming out. I wasn't thinking about what I was saying. I promised at that moment that I would work tirelessly to prevent another such tragedy as ours. You're probably wondering at this point, what happened to my daughter? What did the drug marijuana have to do with it? Or was she associated with other pot users? You'd be wrong on all those counts. Now, this is my story, one that has a terrible ending, and one that affects my life every day and every moment. This also awoke me about the reality of legalizing medical marijuana and what a lie it is. Jennifer was a recent college graduate. She graduated with honors. She was student of the year in her curriculum and the top of her class. She worked very hard for those achievements. She was a highly skilled athlete, and she attended Notre Dame College on a scholarship. Her major was intelligence and analysis research, and her goal after completing a successful internship with the law enforcement agency called High Intensity Drug Trafficking Ohio, or HIDTA, was to fight drugs or to work fighting drugs through another law enforcement agency, the DEA. One of the requirements of her curriculum was to be fluent in multiple languages, and she became fluent in both Spanish and Arabic, and was able to translate both languages. These skills would prepare her far through her chosen field. She had her first interview with HIDA for a permanent position shortly after she accepted another job outside her field. She decided to take this other position as a district manager of a large corporation to help gain valuable management experience and to begin paying off one of her small student loans. Salary and benefits were just too attractive to pass up until her dream job came through. Jennifer began her district manager position with a large company overseeing several stores. She was required to learn the ins and outs of the business from the ground up. It was grueling with long hours and lots of physical work, but she knew that that's what it took to understand the business. At that time, she was dating a man by the name of Grant. He was a law student at Case Western Reserve Law School. Well, we were looking forward to a bright future for them in their careers. They would talk about the two of them traveling the world and a future together after he finished law school. I saw great promise in them and the positive effect they would have on our world someday. Something that impressed me about Jennifer was she was always concerned about helping others whenever she could. Even since she was very young, she would give blood at the Red Cross to help with others with this rare blood type that she had. In high school, Donate Life came to do a presentation about organ donation. It impacted her greatly, and she came home that day and told me she wanted to be a registered organ, eye, and tissue donor. I said okay, and I added, when you apply for your driver's license, we'll do this together. But never did I think I would actually have to experience the outcome of that decision. After her death and donation, I spoke at over 100 schools across our state, telling her story and warning others about what can happen. I quickly learned that in helping others, I was helping myself. During her graduation, my heart swelled with pride, with immense pride, as she spoke at her ceremony and earned her diploma. I remember writing in her graduation card, "I'm not only proud of your accomplishments, but I'm proud of the beautiful and caring woman you have become." That's what we moms do, and we were always looking out for our children, no matter what age, including her brother Michael in this picture with me. One night on July 4th, my husband and I were attending the fireworks display in downtown Columbus, while Jennifer was working in Cleveland. We were ready to leave the event and go home, and I felt like something was wrong, and I asked my husband if he had received any telephone calls. Sure enough, he did. One was from her boyfriend, who seemed panicked and asked us to call him back. We returned his call, and he said Jennifer was missing. She had not returned from work since 6 p.m., and it was now 10:30. He said he went to her store where he thought she was working that day, and it was dark inside and her car was gone. I can't explain to you the feeling that I had at that moment. So anyways, we got in our car and we started that long journey to Cleveland to help look for my daughter. It was a long 2-hour drive, but as we were driving, out of nowhere came a telephone call from my daughter. And she said she was okay and she was at another store working and she forgot to let people know. She said she was embarrassed that we sounded the alarms that all the alarms were sounded by us. I said I was just glad she was okay and afraid something bad had happened to her. Now as I look back, I think this could have been a foreshadowing of the events to come. Needless to say, on our next trip up, when we visited her, we had a conversation over dinner about how to look out for one another, communicate better, and have emergency telephone numbers ready. I thought I did all I could do to keep my daughter safe. Nearly 2 months after the graduation from college, it was a Sunday evening, and I had just gotten off the phone with Jennifer. We talked for a while that night, and we were looking forward to the weekend together as we would decorate and paint her new place. She told me she was tired from a long day at work, and she was going to bed. We exchanged I love yous and hung up. I pictured her all snuggled up in her bed, and it brought a smile to my face because I knew Jennifer was safe and sound. I turned in as well, but then, all of a sudden, at 12:32 a.m., I woke up, wide-eyed, and my heart was beating fast. I wondered if I had just had a bad dream or if something was really wrong. Sorry, this computer's skipping a little bit here. I have to keep going back. My husband tried to console me, but I knew it was more, so I got up. I decided to call my son, who had just moved to another state, and make sure he was okay. He supplied me with his new address and telephone numbers, and I felt sure that was the reason I felt this way, and I went back to sleep. At 6 a.m. the next morning, the phone rang, and it was Grant, Jennifer's boyfriend. We learned the news from him that my sweet daughter Jennifer was killed the night before at exactly 12:32 a.m. Apparently, one of the stores she oversaw had an alarm go off, and the store manager called Jennifer to meet her there. As she made her way to the store, in her brand new work car, a man driving high on medical marijuana raced through the city intersection right through a red light, traveling 82 miles an hour in a 35-mile-an-hour zone. He slammed into the passenger side of my daughter's car, careening her out of control through the front of a lube stop building. Jennifer never saw it coming. Jennifer was pronounced dead at the scene. Her life and all of her future dreams came to a screeching halt. The 26-year-old man, who was basically uninjured, got out of his car with his eyes all glazed over as I heard from people at the scene. I found out from the police an important fact. He was given a medical marijuana card from the state of Michigan and was passing through the state of Ohio high on high-powered THC. And that's the active ingredient in marijuana. Some people are under the misconception that medical marijuana cannot make you high. That's just not true. It's loaded with THC, the hallucinogenic drug, and that's the active component. These marijuana cards are handed out to just about anybody that asks for one by complaining about certain conditions, and these lists expand all the time once it's legal. There is no current medical uses for marijuana. This is why it's classified as Schedule I drug. If it's medicine, then treat it like medicine, and it is still federally illegal. So be careful out there. Even though our state has not legalized recreational marijuana yet, you are not out of danger. Thousands of people are killed or maimed on our roadways each year, and it is estimated that another 7,000 people will be killed if legalization is continued at its current rate. There are far too many lies out there, too, about driving and marijuana, most spread by the marijuana industry. Whether it is smoking, using edibles, vaping, or dabbing, impaired driving is extremely dangerous and potentially lethal. Now this is where I have to go to visit my daughter to the cemetery. There are so many lies being perpetrated on the unsuspecting public, and that is you, about that need to be clarified and corrected. One of them, is my mic still on? Is it still on? Okay. One of them, as I've mentioned, is that pot makes you a better driver and takes away your anxiety. There is nothing from the truth. It actually causes anxiety. In one of my many contacts with young people, such as yourself, many say that they feel like they're a better driver when they're high. This is a total delusion. Quite the opposite is true. Clearly, as it illustrates here, marijuana is a fat-seeking drug, and since our brains are nearly 60% fat, pot concentrates in the brain and impairs all your senses. So how could you drive better with all your senses impaired? It significantly impairs judgment, motor coordination, and reaction time. It impairs our visual sense and affects our eyes, giving us tunnel vision. It actually causes IQ loss in the developing brain, which is anywhere from 12 to 25 years old when used for a long period of time. It also affects the total body. Marijuana has a negative effect on the lungs, and it contains toxic chemicals including ammonia and hydrocyanide. It affects the heart by raising it 20 to 50 beats per minute and even causes tachycardia that could lead to a heart attack. Pretty serious reactions, which are not talked about. People are smoking THC resins. THC is a psychoactive intoxicating component of marijuana, and this marijuana is called dabbing. These extracts they smoke come from various forms like hash oil, honey oil, butter, and most concentrated is shatter and dab, among others. Products such as soft drinks, brownies, gummy bears, cookies, and chocolates, and even beer can be infused with THC. THC can be put in just about anything that's edible. And this is a really scary thing, and you might not know what you are ingesting. Many of these products contain 3 to 20% THC concentrations recommended for intoxication. Packages are often marked with children's colors and their favorite characters. This actually happened to a friend of mine. She was given a lemon drop when she had a sore throat, and she doesn't remember anything for the next 6 hours. And she was flying from a city back here to Columbus. Doesn't remember any of it. Doses are not even clear, and you may take more than you can handle. One bite of a THC-infused cookie is a dose, but who does eat just one bite of a cookie? They eat the whole thing. Another scary fact is that edibles take time to metabolize in the digestive system, and this can lead to driving under the influence. When they get in their car, they feel fine, and then 30 minutes later, they are impaired and driving a potential killing machine. Think about your friend driving impaired while you are in their car, putting your life at risk. These unregulated products are made very accessible to all ages. This is a major concern for most mental health professionals because young developing brains are most vulnerable to permanent damage. Now, I know the evidence is clear. Marijuana comes with many health and safety risks. I have become knowledgeable on this and how many lives it has destroyed. Through the work I've done with several organizations, I have met countless parents who have lost their children in one way or another due to this drug. Some examples are as follows. Lori, a cancer nurse from California, raised her son to be educated and successful. Somehow, through his acquaintances, he became addicted to dab. He ended his own life in a psychotic break caused by marijuana use. Another parent's son was using marijuana for pain and eventually destroyed his life, but not before becoming violent and declaring marijuana killed his brain and ruined his soul. Phil, a pharmacist in California, someone I talk to quite often, lost his daughter as she was driving to work one day. A man high on marijuana jumped the middle barrier and hit her directly on. Emergency rooms in pot-legalized states are treating countless people who go there with a condition called cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. They arrive there with severe abdominal pain and scream as they are vomiting. Not a pretty sight. There is no treatment for this other than stopping to use marijuana. It has been shown that in 7 to 10 days, the symptoms go away. Parents of addicted kids have noticed that their teens are taking long, hot showers as it's one of the easiest way to relieve the pain. They often scold themselves because they make the water so hot. My mission as an advocate has become local, state, and a national pursuit. I've testified in the Ohio legislature against the legalization of marijuana because I'm shocked to see also that there were only 3 other parents who stood up against it. But in a way I understand, because I was just like them. It didn't affect my life back then, and I thought that I was just hearing a bunch of lies, that it was a harmless weed. Now I believe that if marijuana really does have a significant use in the medical world, then it should be treated like medicine. It should be put through the FDA and through a blind study. Have it distributed like other drugs, through the pharmacy board and through doctors. There is already a drug developed from marijuana called Marinol, used by cancer patients to increase their hunger. Today's pot shops are run by uneducated pot tenders who are basically pot users. A person with a medical marijuana card would take advice from a pot user based on their complaints. It's a totally unregulated way of distributing a dangerous drug. Most of the people that show up at these hearings to legalize pot have a vested interest in the pot industry and no interest of the lives that it affects. Here are some books, here are some books that I should mention that will give you a deep insight into the marijuana industry. Tell Your Children the Truth About Marijuana, Mental Health, and Violence, which is read and it explains the whole legalization process and the background of it. Whoa Dude, and that may be a book that you might like to read, it's more geared toward younger people, is a book on the harmful effects of cannabis and what the science is telling us about the dangers of using. Smokescreen was written by Kevin Sabet, the president of Smart Approaches to Marijuana. His website and book are very informative in understanding the industry and how it is affecting our country. Traffic fatalities are daily events from marijuana use where lives are needlessly lost. Most of you don't hear about it through the media. It's not always immediately clear that it was a drug involved. Again, it's swept under the carpet. In our own case, the newspaper heading said, "Car hits business, woman 22 dies." They mentioned nothing about the other man involved and the one that killed my daughter. They mentioned nothing about marijuana. He only spent a total of 17 months in jail. The judge at the sentencing had the gall to say, "I have pity here for both families. They got their son back in 17 months. We live without my daughter forever." Needless to say, this was very hurtful for all of us and for all the friends that loved Jennifer, because she was the light of our life. Now, I never thought that I would have to live my life, and as I said earlier that day, I stood behind the podium at my daughter's funeral. It became evident that it would be my life's work. Jennifer was one of the strongest and most fearless people I've ever known. Jennifer believed in justice, and when she saw injustice, she would say something immediately. That is why I'm here today. You see, I care about each and every one of you. I hope that Jennifer's tragedy has impacted you in a positive way and that you will make a good decision about marijuana use. In her senior year of college, as an example, she decided to coach a high school lacrosse team, and she became aware of a young goalie on the team named Amanda. She was excessively bullied by the other girls on the team, and she was really having a tough time. Jennifer befriended her and talked with the other girls about the cowardly act of bullying. When Amanda found out that Jennifer was so tragically killed, she contacted me and was very distraught. Amanda told me through her tears that she was once very sad and thinking terrible thoughts, but because of the bullying she had endured. After Jennifer took a stand for her, she turned her life around for the better. Amanda and her family have kept in touch with me over the years, and she has come to visit and help me with different projects that I've done. She has now graduated in speech pathology. Like I said, Jennifer cared and made a difference and touched so many lives in her short 22 years. While at her funeral, I told everyone that her death could not be in vain. I wanted no other families to have to feel this loss that we have, that no other innocent person should lose their lives on the streets or on the highways because of driving impaired on marijuana. We need to put an end to this insanity and prevent another tragedy like ours through education and awareness. My work and the work of others, dedicated advocates, is to educate the public about the dangers associated with marijuana and driving, and it hasn't been easy. We've been criticized and called liars by supporters of the pot industry, and they can sometimes be rather vicious. We are told that our stories are made up and they really didn't happen. Usually these attacks come from pot users trying to support their habit, using limited vocabulary and ignorance. Yes, this does not deter our efforts. Affecting change takes time and patience. Forming coalitions and working together is the key to successful information being disseminated and giving a platform to advocates who dedicate their time and talent so tragedies like ours can be avoided. I already know that our efforts have paid off because I heard from a mom recently. She was a friend of a friend I met at a wedding, and I shared some of my information with her on Facebook. She learned enough to discern that her daughter was getting high and driving impaired. It wasn't an easy conversation she had to have, but as you can really imagine, she didn't find help for her daughter right away, but when she did, both her and her daughter expressed gratitude and that we shed light on the issue. Now I hear her daughter's in college and doing very well. She says she thanks her mom every day, and of course, I hope there is more that I have been able to influence, but even some of you today, because we always want to remember that knowledge is power. So you see, I have a great mission, and the odds are against me, but I try to celebrate the successes we have, and there are so many more. It's amazing what a small group of dedicated individuals can accomplish. I know the perils of driving on our roads today, and I'm working to reduce the danger through awareness and education because I keep my promises, and this was a very important one. Some people say I'm strong, but there is a certain kind of bravery that comes with a tragedy like this. I tell them, well, the worst thing that could happen to me already has. I want you to know that I truly do care about you, our society, and about the scourge that will fill our country once marijuana has become fully legalized. People will continue to drive impaired. Already, countless people have died in the drug trade. Homelessness is at an all-time high. Just because it's legal, these things will not change and only get worse. The black market of drugs will not go away, and it will only become more emboldened. It is up to each one of us to find the truth and voice our opposition. Don't let another tragedy like mine happen to you before we wake up to the reality of marijuana. I cannot do this work alone, so I hope that you will join me and other concerned citizens by becoming part of the solution. The power for change is each one of us. Let's be the #1 state, or the first state, to say no legalized marijuana in our state. Don't live in denial, Ohio. I love that saying, by the way. This is something that has just come about. I've just found out about this. My daughter's story is very important, and that's why the DEA has created a memorial display in the DEA Museum in Washington, D.C., telling her story and keeping this lesson alive of what it means to drive impaired. Her legacy will motivate others to tell the truth about the drug and how it has destroyed promising lives. And I will be going to Washington soon, and I will be seeing this firsthand. So I ask you, if you wouldn't mind, if you would like to take out your phones and join Jennifer's messengers, sounding the alarm about marijuana impaired driving. That's one of the ways you can join us by, numbers speak. So the more people we have that are speaking out against this, all you have to do is join. It would make a big difference to me. And this logo, I just want to comment on this beautiful logo. I have a very dear friend, Jackie, and I have a very dear friend, and she actually painted this. Both of her parents were killed in a car crash on 36, and this has just been significant because the last time Jennifer and I ever went shopping together as mom and daughter, she actually bought a picture of a water lily. So this is why it's become the significance with Jennifer's messengers. So would anybody like to ask any questions? And I just want to let you know that I'm so glad you all stayed and you heard this message, and no questions are off the table if anybody has any questions at all. Yes? I'm sorry? Would you like the mic?
How should we deal with people that is already addicted to marijuana?
Okay, how should we deal with people that we know that are overly addicted to marijuana? That's a great question. What I would do in a case like that is I would speak with them, try to find out what's going on in their life, if you can. There's lots of education on the internet perhaps go on, there's a website called Every Brain Matters. It's something new out there, and it's a whole website on marijuana and the dangers. There's all kinds of information on it. And I would encourage them to seek help, especially if they're a young person, because remember, the developing brain is from 12 to 25, and it's definitely going to affect them long term if they are using marijuana on a regular basis or even on a part-time basis. Thank you so much for that question. Yes.
So like when it comes to alcohol, it could be argued that it's the same or worse than marijuana. So would you like to legalize alcohol as well?
Boy, these are really good questions today. He's asking what I think about marijuana versus alcohol legalization, right? Well, all I can say to you is alcohol, they're both very different things. One of them is fat soluble, one of them is water soluble, okay? The fat soluble one is the marijuana. And what happens when you use marijuana, I don't want to just say smoke because there's many ways to use marijuana. What happens when you ingest this into your system, the marijuana immediately leaves the blood and it goes to the brain and it goes to the other fat tissues in your body where it stays. So you can actually become chronically impaired on marijuana. And when you use marijuana with alcohol, that's even worse because marijuana actually lowers that blood-brain barrier to the brain. And you will feel the intensity of alcohol a lot quicker when you're using both of them together. Does that answer your question? And alcohol is a water soluble, okay? It goes through your liver and then it's expelled from your body. Unless you're a very, very heavy drinker, it leaves your body quickly because it's water soluble. Does that answer your question? Anybody have a follow-up question to that? Yes?
So are you saying people can't get addicted to alcohol too?
No, I'm not saying that. You can get addicted to alcohol. It's a drug, and you can get addicted to it. But I'm just saying they're quite different. I know that I've heard from other students that they feel that alcohol is safer because marijuana is better because you don't wake up with a hangover. Well, you may not have a headache, but it doesn't mean that it's not in your body. So, and it stays there, and it's an accumulative effect. Does that answer your question? Okay. Is there some other questions? I'm not a doctor. I've done a lot of research. I feel like I am pretty much aware of what's going on with marijuana. And I can tell you that it's a lot more powerful than what they think it is. When I was growing up back in the 70s, marijuana was 1 to 3% THC. And today, because of all the work they've done with growing these plants, and it's actually 25 to 30% now in the flower. And then what they do is they make these resins out of marijuana by heating the leaves and heating the flower. And they end up getting this very potent, just the THC comes out of the plant. And another thing about marijuana, it's loaded with pesticides, herbicides, heavy metals. We have a company, SAM. I work for SAM, Smart Approaches to Marijuana, and they've actually taken these things and done testing on them themselves in an independent lab. And this is what they found. They even found this in CBD. So this area is very unregulated. No one is watching out for you. No one is testing these things like the FDA does with food and drugs. Yes?
Then why not regulate it?
That's another these are really great questions. He says, and why not regulate it? I wish it was regulated, okay? It is currently federally illegal. So when it's on the Schedule I drug, there are certain things that they can't do with it. And I don't understand how they put it out into our society like they have. I don't understand it because it's putting a lot of youth at risk. That's a very good question, too. No other questions? I'm sure you probably know people that might use it, and you might want to be able to tell them something about it. So feel free to go on Every Brain Matters, EBM. Look at the videos. We've done podcasts on there, informational ones with doctors. We have a pain doctor on there. We have a psychiatrist on there. And you can get the true story. You don't have to just get it from me. I just want to make you aware of it. Okay? All right. Well, thank you so much for listening to me today. And if you do have any other questions, you can feel free to, I have a card up here if anybody would like my business card, and you can email me directly, and I'd be happy to answer any of your further questions.
I was just gonna say, and we're gonna be out at lunch. So
Right.
Come up and talk to her at lunch.
Right. Come up and talk to me. And, I'm not somebody that's going to turn you in or, if you have a question, if you're really concerned about something, I'm here to help you. I really want to, and I would really like to bring light to this subject because you're getting so many false misnomers out there about marijuana. And, it's just not good for the developing brain. And a lot of the damage that it does is permanent to the prefrontal lobe of the brain. So, thank you.
Let's go ahead and give her a round of applause. It takes a lot of courage for her to come and to present on behalf